Successful Bookkeepers. My name is Erin Daiber. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Thanks for joining me. How many of you started your practice with a particular vision in mind? You likely had a clear idea of who you wanted to serve and what you wanted it to look like. And I'm guessing that you also had a pretty clear vision of what you didn't want it to look like. A lot of businesses are born out of trying to avoid some of the mistakes or the practices that other firms have used that maybe you felt like, gosh, those just don't work and I don't want to do that anymore. I can do it better. I can find a better way. Has your vision come to life? Maybe it's evolved a little bit over time from what you initially thought it would look like to what it is today. If you had a similar experience to mine, maybe, unfortunately, your practice has developed some of those characteristics that you initially were trying to avoid. Now, you may feel stuck. You may feel like, how did I end up here? How did I end up with this practice that is the opposite of what I intended in so many ways? What if I told you there was another way? What if I said that you don't have to stay stuck? You are not bound to this business that isn't exactly what you intended, and that's maybe not a practice that you love anymore. What if we could take you from this business that is not so fulfilling, that maybe you're resenting at times, and transform it back into the practice that you intended or into the practice that you love today? It's actually a pretty simple fix. Would you be interested? About 10 years ago, I traded in my traditional accounting job to start to work as a coach, specifically with accountants and firm leaders and practice owners just like yourself. When I started off in that practice, I also had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted it to look like, but an even clearer, crystal clear vision of what I didn't want. I knew I didn't want to work the long hours anymore. I had been there, done that. I knew I wanted to make good money and have balance and set out to be able to support my family with this practice. But after only a couple of short years, I found myself working incredibly long hours and saying yes when clients would ask, "Can you take a call on Saturday? Are you available after hours?" And even though I wasn't making enough money to replace my income just yet, and not nearly as much money as I wanted to be making, I found myself offering discounts to clients. I kept telling myself over and over that this is part of being in client service. This is what we have to do to keep our clients happy, to ultimately retain them. Guess who started to suffer the most because of that? It was me. I was starting to resent my business. And that is another thing that I definitely didn't want when I started out. It wasn't until I shifted my mindset around boundaries like this that things really started to change. I was able to start making more money, bring on more clients, have more balance in my life. And I found that clients are actually happier with those types of boundaries in place. Now I get to work with leaders just like you across the US who are running successful practices, whether in the bookkeeping space or accounting firms. And in my opinion, I get to work with some of the coolest people around. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing these concepts and tools with you so that you can continue to build the practice that you love, one that fulfills you and keeps you happy. Life is too short to be stuck in a practice where we are building resentment or we aren't getting exactly what we want out of it. So that's what we're up to today. We're going to explore how to give your practice a makeover by setting simple boundaries. And at the end of our time together today, you're going to be able to walk away with a brand new, empowered relationship with boundaries. You'll also have clarity about where you should be setting boundaries in your practice and where those biggest opportunities lie for you to have big ROI. And for me, sometimes ROI means money, but more often than not, it also includes things like balance, maybe more time for yourself or time for your family and the things that you like to do, more happiness. Those things are important too. And then finally, I will offer you some additional support with implementation because I know how hard it is to break out of those habits, step away from your business, and actually start to put these things in place. Even though we know they're going to help us, it's still not easy. So I do want to offer you that additional support at the end. That's coming up later. Now, the good news is boundaries are for everyone. So even if you're just starting out in your business, whether you're in a growth stage and you're actively bringing on new clients or working on expanding the services you're offering to clients, maybe you're in a maintenance mode, or maybe you've been in practice for a long time and you're actually starting to think about succession planning and what's next for you. Boundaries are going to support you no matter which stage of your business you're in. You might be thinking, well, succession planning, I don't have to do this. It'll be somebody else's problem when I sell my practice or when I hand it off to the next person. But just keep in mind, we want to build a business that someone wants to take over. We don't want to just hand them those clients that aren't appreciative or, clients that aren't being billed appropriately. We actually want to start to make those changes now to be able to hand over something that's truly valuable. To help us with our conversation today, we're going to be referring to what I've created, this client service cycle. Yours may look a little bit different, but I wanted to try to capture those various stages of working with our clients so that we can look and see what boundary opportunities there are in each of those phases. But as we're going through this and talking about boundaries in your business, I also want you to be thinking about where you need to set better boundaries in your life. The way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So if you find that you really struggle with setting or maintaining boundaries in a business setting, my guess is that that shows up for you in some way personally as well. That maybe you say yes when you really mean no, or you over promise in different areas and then struggle to deliver or have to set your own desires and needs aside in order to fulfill on that. So let's explore both because they really are interconnected. And the great thing about this is if you can have a breakthrough around boundaries at work, you'll be able to apply those same concepts to your life, to your family life, and everywhere else that this shows up. So we have to start by exploring your current relationship with boundaries. If we just jump in and start to say, okay, here are the different places I can set boundaries, the likelihood that you would actually go and do that and be able to stick with it is pretty small. Our behaviors as leaders and humans is driven by an internal belief system. Think of it like the internal operating system of your computer. If we don't upgrade that system, the output is not going to change very significantly. So if we've got a belief system that's disempowered around setting boundaries, the likelihood that you're going to go and set them is pretty low. So that's the reason that we have to start here. We have to explore that relationship to boundaries first so that we can shift it and have this be easier. I just want you to be able to grow your practice and transform your practice with ease. You don't need any more struggles, I'm guessing. So think about your current relationship to boundaries. I'm going to put a couple of examples up on the screen. See if one of these might resonate for you. Maybe you've heard yourself say, well, if I set boundaries, I'm afraid something might happen. I'm afraid my clients might leave. My team might not be happy. If I'm too direct, my clients will think I'm mean or I'm inflexible or too demanding. If I set hard deadlines, my team might quit. My team might burn out. My team might not like me. Boundaries are scary, hard. Boundaries are restrictive. Boundaries are not something I've ever done. So explore what your current relationship is Maybe some of these, maybe all of these resonate for you. But it's really important to identify what that internal dialogue has when you think about boundaries. And by the way, we're talking about all kinds of different things in your business that are boundaries, like pricing or setting clarity and clear expectations around deliverables for your clients or your availability. So this can mean a lot of different things. We're going to talk about those specific examples in a moment. So jot this down. Your current relationship to boundaries is whatever that internal dialogue is. Let's just make a note of it. Now, here's the interesting thing about human behavior. We don't do anything without getting something out of it, typically called a payoff. So the next question to discovering and sort of uncovering this very complex relationship that a lot of us have to boundaries is to understand what is the payoff. So when I say payoff, I mean we're either getting something out of it, right? We get to avoid something uncomfortable, or it gives us this sense of feeling good. But the trick with that is it's very temporary. So it's not a forever good feeling. It's just good for the short term until the next bad thing happens. So we're getting something out of it. Let me give you an example of a couple of examples, actually, of where we don't set boundaries and the related payoff. So let's say I tend to not set very clear expectations about pricing and how I charge for overages or things that are out of scope in the beginning, right? I'm actually pretty loose and flexible when it comes to contracting and coming to those agreements with my clients. What do I get out of that? There's some reason that we do it that way. Well, my payoff might be I get to avoid having that difficult conversation and laying out the ground rules. I also maybe get to win the client easily and feel good. And I feel like I'm making them feel good because I'm not setting those hard boundaries. So there's a payoff. Can you hear it? Let's give you another example. Maybe I am accepting any and all clients, good, bad, and ugly. Anybody who comes to my door and says, I need bookkeeping services, I say yes. Now, my payoff might be, well, I get to feed my ego because I won the client. I've won yet again. More money, right? More money coming in the door. But maybe I'm also secretly avoiding that uncomfortable feeling of saying no, or feeling like I'm actually not worthy of picking and choosing my clients, or, I get to avoid worrying about scarcity, right? Maybe I'm a little afraid to say no because I don't know when that next client is going to show up. But you can hear the payoff, right? It's not necessarily a good thing that we're getting, but it's driven by that fear-based conversation. One more example of a potential payoff in case you haven't uncovered yours yet. Maybe I say yes to client demands, even when they don't really work for me. My payoff, what do you think I'm getting out of that? Well, I, again, get to avoid that difficult conversation with a client to say, no, I can't do that, right? Or that doesn't work in my timeline. Another sneaky payoff, maybe I just get to be busy. I get to feel really important and special, and I get to avoid other things in life because I'm so busy at work. I couldn't possibly put myself out there and start dating because I am so busy with work. I can't possibly go build new friendships, or I couldn't possibly fill in the blank and the other things that you might be avoiding. Maybe more urgent, more necessary things. So it has unique ways of showing up for all of us, but I can assure you, we don't do anything without a payoff. So really challenge yourself to think about, when I'm not setting boundaries in a number of different ways in my business and my life, what is that payoff? What am I avoiding? Or what do I get? How do I feel good, but only temporarily? So we get the payoff, but it comes at a cost. And I'm going to ask, what is it costing you? It's likely costing you your peace, your happiness. I think we could tie it to a dollar amount pretty easily of what it's costing you. If, say, you're consistently offering 10 to 15 to 20% discounts, maybe you're not billing for overages. It's clearly hitting your bottom line. But it's costing you more important things also. Time with your family, time to do the things that you really love doing. Maybe you are resenting your practice a little bit now. So it comes at a clear cost. They might be thinking, well, yeah, but I can live with it, right? This is a lot easier than setting boundaries. So what if we don't change? It's obviously entirely up to you. You don't have to make changes in your practice. You can continue going this way, but any complaints that you currently have are likely to continue. Any frustrations with clients, frustration with your life, a lack of balance, working crazy hours, none of those things are likely to change until we become willing to change our approach. Our results are likely going to stay very similar. So I'm going to offer you a new way forward, and it's your choice if you decide to take it on. So let's explore a new relationship to boundaries. We have the old one. We know what that gets us. It gets us some temporary feelings of feeling good, and it also allows us to avoid some uncomfortable things. But it's coming at a huge cost, likely not one that's worth it in the long run. So I'm going to offer a few suggestions, but feel free to create your own new empowered relationship around boundaries. Consider these. Boundaries help me to create freedom in my business. Boundaries allow us to provide the highest level of customer service. Boundaries are awesome. Boundaries are my path forward. Our path to financial freedom and profitability. Fill in the blank. Clarity, which is also a boundary, by the way, clarity sets my team and my clients up for success. So you'll notice none of these are exact opposites of the others. So if I used to think boundaries are hard, my new relationship to boundaries isn't boundaries are easy, because that's inside of the same context. This is all about how we view boundaries and view our role in our practices. I saw a quote just recently that said, we see things the way we are, not the way they are. And so think of this like wearing sunglasses. If I'm wearing rose-colored sunglasses, everything outside, everything out there is going to look pink. But if I took off those sunglasses and put on a new pair that have green lenses, everything's going to look green. And so if I'm thinking, oh, my clients will never accept X, Y, or Z boundaries that I might put in place, that may be true. That just means they're not the right client for you anymore. It doesn't mean that you can't set the boundary. More than likely, though, it's not true. They will accept it. Many of them will. Many of them might be happy to have those boundaries. I can tell you from personal experience that when my bookkeeping and accounting firm that works on my business sets deadlines for me, it actually helps me to stay accountable. It helps me to prioritize those things and make sure I'm staying on track. Without those boundaries, God only knows when I would get my books in order. So let's explore some of these areas and specific opportunities for you to set boundaries. Make sure you jot down your new relationship to boundaries that you want to practice with. And I'd invite you to post it in your space, somewhere where you can see it, big and bold. Okay, so let's start looking at this client service cycle and different opportunities for you to start setting boundaries in your practice. So we're going to start here at the exploratory phase. We're just maybe meeting a referral or someone that's contacted you from your website, however you get new potential clients in the door. We're simply exploring. We haven't started working yet. So in this exploratory phase, believe it or not, there are opportunities to set boundaries from the jump. And it's actually really important to do so. Just consider any boundaries that we set early in the cycle are going to help things be a lot easier the further down the cycle we go. So in this exploratory phase, one of the best ways to set boundaries is simply to identify who are your ideal clients. What size of business? What industry are they in? What type of business? Maybe the personality of the owner or the main contacts, right? Are these people that I like and want to be with and want to spend time with? What are my minimum fees? Maybe you set a simple minimum and say, we can't afford to take on any clients under $500 a month. It's our minimum flat rate fee, and it goes up from there. Maybe software considerations. For instance, if you're a QuickBooks Online bookkeeper and your client has QuickBooks Desktop, that might be a non-starter for you. I don't want to work with QuickBooks Desktop people. No problem at all. You get to choose. We're in an incredible time in this profession where there's such a need for bookkeepers and accountants, especially great ones like you, that we can really set these boundaries and we don't have to feel bad about it. There will be more clients on their way. So the step here is to set those boundaries. Be clear about who those ideal clients are. The clearer you are, the more likely you are to attract those types of clients. And as you do, you can systematically replace one non-ideal client with an ideal one. And all of a sudden, your practice has transformed. So your action step here is to create what I call your red velvet rope policy. So sometimes people have resistance to this. We worry that if I am too restrictive about who I'll let in, I've shrunk the pool of potential clients so much that now I'm going to not be able to make money, or I'm not going to be able to grow and scale my practice. But things are so international and there are no boundaries anymore. So believe it or not, the clearer you are about who you serve, the more abundance you will have access to. I'm a coach. I offer consulting services and strategic planning and things like that. I could do that for anybody, but I only work with accountants and bookkeepers. I don't work with financial advisors. I don't work with CFPs. I don't work with a group of people, but I work with one very narrow niche of people. And it has provided more than enough work. So resist the resistance to shrinking your pool of potential people, because it's going to allow you to streamline your business and to really serve those clients to the best of your ability. Think of this red velvet rope like Walmart versus Costco versus a really tightly monitored store, or like even a speakeasy, right? Anybody can walk into Walmart. You could run your practice like that too, where you take on any clients, but that creates some challenges, right? You may have to work with some that are kind of unruly, or who are not going to pay on time, or who can't really afford your fees that you want to charge. Now we could be more like a Costco, where we have some boundaries, but still fairly open, as long as I'm willing to pay the membership fee and renew that every year, right? So maybe I restrict it somewhat. Or I could be like that secret speakeasy where I have to know the password and the secret knock on the door in order to get in. And this is just an example, but being more specific and more restrictive about who you will let in can actually be a way to grow your business. Okay, moving on to the contracting phase. Say you've now decided your ideal client has come to you. They are your ideal client. They fit behind your red velvet rope. Now we're in the contracting phase. So this is when we have those conversations about, here's what you can count on from us as your new bookkeeper, then here's what we need from you. Now, I'm guessing some of you might be thinking, oh gosh, I don't have that conversation. Right? Especially not the part about here's what we need from you. This is service. I am serving them. But it really is a two-way street. You can't do your work without their inputs. So what are your rules of engagement? Think of things like pricing, scoping your projects, Office hours. How accessible are you? Can we have a call on Saturday? No, I'm so sorry. Our hours are Monday to Friday, right? You can even restrict that further to, yeah, we're available for client calls Monday, Wednesday, and Friday only, so that you have Tuesdays and Thursdays to work and get things complete. Deadlines, when they need to get information to you in order for you to have enough time for turnaround. And also communicating expectations. Now, we often resist having these kinds of conversations so early on because we're afraid that it might turn off the client, right? Oof, they might feel like we're too restrictive or it's too hard to engage with you. And so they're going to go find somebody else. And look, the reality is they might, but the ones that do come in are going to abide by your rules. They're going to be willing to stick with you. Any sort of fluffiness or looseness in this contracting phase opens the doors for a lot of challenges later. Pricing, for example. The clearer you are about pricing and how you do your billing, how you charge for overages or out of scope projects, the easier it will be to send bills when it comes to billing time. Believe it or not, I know a lot of accountants and bookkeepers who get really scared or insecure about sending bills, especially when they're higher, even if they are under a contract at a certain rate. Sometimes we still feel a little nervous about that, right? That's our own stuff. That's us feeling not good enough or not valued. That's the type of work we need to be doing to grow our businesses to the next level. So the looser it is, the more likely you are to start negotiating against yourself and offering discounts, lowering the rates, not billing for things. So where do you have an opportunity to start tightening up the contracting phase with your clients? What conversations do you need to be having upfront? Jot down some ideas for your practice. On to the next. Now we're talking about onboarding. We've welcomed the client on, we've got the contract in place, the engagement letter, and now we're onboarding. This is things like systems and processes. Hopefully from a software perspective, you've already vetted that they're the right type of client for you so that you don't have to go and learn a whole new software system. But we're also talking about internal systems and processes. I want to encourage you to resist the urge to over-customize your services. That is a boundary that's being flexed. An example of a boundary might be, we offer these 3 packages, right? A silver, a gold, and a platinum package. And those packages include these services. And if you need these services plus 1 or 2 things here, okay, you're in the gold package. This is how we work. Now, again, it's not going to work for everyone, but it is going to work for your ideal clients because I trust that you can create packages that are going to work for them. But when we start to get too customized or we just are so flexible and we're meeting all of the needs of all of our clients, it becomes unscalable. Have you experienced that? What access do you need, right? Making sure that they're willing to give you direct access to their bank accounts or to their QuickBooks files, etc. So where do you see yourself overflexing? Where are you not being restrictive enough or clear enough about your processes? Usually we're doing this to keep our clients happy, to try to appease them, and we're the ones that suffer. Okay, going on to the servicing phase. All right, on to the servicing phase now. We've got the client on board. We're now giving our normal service. We're in that normal routine of things. So this is basically where we are in the maintenance phase here. We've done the work to set ourselves up for success, to set our clients up for success, and now we have to maintain. So we do that with clear communication. When issues come up, when requests come up, we have to address it head on. We want to manage scope creep. When things come up that are outside of our scope, let's just address it. The clearer we can be, and the more upfront we can be, the better off everybody is in the end. This is about holding yourself and your clients accountable. They likely promised things in that contracting phase. And for instance, if they're consistently late getting you information, so you have to scramble to close their books every month by a deadline, we have to have that conversation. That's about holding somebody accountable. Here's an example of one that I see happen all the time, that if I have one wish for you, this would be it. Don't do work for clients who aren't paying, right? If they haven't paid you, if they're behind, we need to stop doing work for them. That actually opens you up to some liability to be doing work that isn't being paid. So what opportunities do you see in the everyday client service arena where you could put some more boundaries in place, or where you need to maybe put some boundaries in for yourself? What does that look like? We'll talk about that more in a moment also. Now, finally, we get to the evaluating stage. So we've done maybe our initial contract, or we've been together with this client for about a year or so. So always a good time to reevaluate. Is this working for us? And what needs to change, right? What parts of this aren't working? Do we want to continue with this client? By the way, the answer is sometimes no, and that's okay. Consider that you keeping a client that is not your ideal client is actually hurting them, because there is a bookkeeper out there who does the work that they need done and who would be hungry for that work. And you keeping it is doing them a disservice. If you do want to continue with that client, maybe there are other services we might offer. Maybe we want to upgrade them. Maybe we want to downgrade them, and we actually want them to start doing some of the work themselves, and we just want to work at a high level. Maybe you've changed the way you offer services since that client came on. This is a great time to get them, get those historical clients, or those those historical clients, the ones you've worked with for years. I can't think of the other word. That we can start to get them on board with our new processes. So again, we don't have things happening in 6 different ways in the practice. Do we need to adjust the pricing? It could very well be that it's just time for the annual increase. Maybe we didn't increase them for a while, and now they're our lowest paying client, but they're not our easiest one. So this is a great time to reevaluate. And then we basically come back to that exploratory phase with them about what their new needs might be and how we're going to work together. And we continue to do this with each of our clients until we have developed the practice that you want. Now, boundaries, like we said, we're not limited just to work. So I want to expand our thinking a little bit. Where do you want to expand, or where do you need to expand the boundaries that you set with your team? Clear expectations are one of the most obvious, sort of the low-hanging fruit boundaries with your team, but it might also be about your expectations of working hours, when they're available, when they're going to be by their computer and answering your calls, due dates for projects, accountability on getting projects done in the timeline that they agree to, work quality, maybe continuous learning and making sure they're always trying to up-level their skills, taking classes, maybe maintaining a culture. Those are all expectations that you can share with them and boundaries that you can set. Now, how about with yourself and in your life? Consider that protecting time for your own self-care, your own recharge time, unplugged time, that's a boundary. Protecting your peace, saying no to too much social media or TV that makes you not feel great about yourself, or maybe the people in your life who are energy vampires. That's all about protecting your peace. That is a boundary. Honoring your commitments in other places, right? Honoring your commitments to your family or to your volunteer organization or to your friends. That's an example of a boundary. And honoring your calendar. For example, you might find gosh, I'm exhausted at the end of the day after so many meetings. A boundary might be, I can't take more than 2 or 3 meetings in a day. It's just too much. It doesn't allow me time to get my other work done. So that's an example of a boundary and honoring your calendar. So there's been a lot of examples. I hope you found some opportunities to set some new boundaries in your practice. Now, where will we go from here? Just imagine what your practice will look like when you're setting these boundaries consistently. Imagine these clients of yours who are your ideal clients. They appreciate your service. They're willing to pay for that service that you provide. They're embracing the boundaries that you set. Your processes are streamlined, simplified. You bill these clients handsomely and you're getting paid with ease. Those difficult conversations that you dread having with your clients currently, they aren't so difficult anymore, thanks to all that work that you've done. I want you to have this clear vision of where you're headed, what opportunities are available for you through setting boundaries. It's a simple step and simple small actions that create a big shift, a big transformation in your practice. Now, keep in mind, this isn't going to happen overnight. It's not like flipping a switch. Be patient with yourself and keep working towards it little by little. Maybe focus on one area at a time. Focus on doing this with brand new clients first, and then with your existing clients, we'll start to work that in. You may also be sitting here feeling excited and at the same time overwhelmed. Gosh, where do I even start? Maybe those what ifs have started to creep in about, what if I can't do this? What if I don't deserve to have a practice that runs smoothly like this? What if I can't pull this off? Or if I am not successful at holding myself accountable to making these changes. And I promised I would offer some additional support at the end because I know that that's the biggest challenge. You come to these types of events that are inspiring and you get new ideas and tools that would make a huge difference in your practice, but you're busy. So how are we going to implement those things? How are we going to fit this in and find the time to make these changes? And I'd love to support you with that. I'd love to support you in uncovering your relationship to boundaries and some of that deeper behavioral conversation that is driving your choices, driving the choices that you make in your practice. I'd love to invite you to schedule some time with me. We can dive into those unique ways that this shows up for you and help you to build out an implementation plan. Also happy to answer any other questions you might have from today or just in general about your practice. We could really make good use of this time. So please take me up on this offer. I would love to connect with you. And I can't wait to hear about all the changes you make after this summit. Thanks again for being here. I so appreciate your time and loved being here with you. Have a great rest of your day.